This episode is being brought to you in part by Real-Time CTMS, a leading provider of innovative software solutions for clinical trial research sites, site networks, sponsors, and CROs. Real-time systems allow users to manage complex clinical research processes with powerful, user-friendly interfaces that are revolutionizing how research gets done. To get a free demo, visit the company's website at realtime-ctms.com and complete one of their contact forms. Hello and welcome to the Note to File podcast, a collection of interviews, best practices, and candid commentary for clinical research sites. I'm your host, Brad Hightower. Our guest this week is Ardy Arianpour. He's the CEO and co-founder of Seqster, the leading healthcare technology company that puts the patient at the center of all their health data. He's a visionary health tech executive with 20 plus years driving innovation in biotech and digital health. Prior to starting Seqster, Ardy launched several clinical and consumer-based genetic tests as CCO of Pathway Genomics and served as SVP of Ambry Genetics, which sold to Konica in 2017 for about $1 billion. As a key player in the 2013 landmark SCOTUS decision scrapping gene patents, Ardy played an instrumental role in expanding genetic testing access with the launch of BRCA testing, benefiting patients and family members across the country. Ardy received his BS in Biological Sciences from UC Irvine and an MB from Marshall Goldsmith School of Management. He was a medical marketing and media's top 40 healthcare transformer in San Diego Business Journal 40 Under 40. A very accomplished dude, very high energy, really cool interview. In this episode, we discuss health data silos, the history of Seqster, digital front door use cases, and which Metallica album is best. I want to point out one glaring error I made in the podcast is that I believe I said the Metallica song 1 was on Master of Puppets, when in fact it was on And Justice for All. So, a little oversight on my part. Very embarrassing. Either way, without further ado, Ardy Arianpour. All right, Ardy, appreciate you coming on, man.
Great to be here, Brad. Happy Friday to you.
Yes, it's been an excruciatingly long week. So yeah, I'm glad it's Friday. Where are you at, man?
San Diego, California. We're having a little bit of heat wave, but it doesn't stop us from drinking the good tequila and the tacos here.
What's a heat wave qualify as in San Diego?
Well, when your iPhone says heat warning and it's only 83 degrees, you know something is wrong.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah, we're coming out of the hundreds this week finally, and getting a little bit of rain. So I'm looking forward to that. But all right, I'm going to jump in just like I do with all guests. And I know you're a little different than a lot of our guests. You have a sort of a very, very varied background, very diverse. So, I kind of want to hear a little bit about your backstory and what kind of brought you into maybe not just the clinical trial space, but more of the sort of health tech space in general. So if you'd indulge us into a little bit of your origin story, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, imagine that during this, in the next 60 seconds, you can connect and share all your health data in one place to advance clinical trials. That's really the power of Seqster. So we created Seqster with the mission of putting the patient at the center of healthcare. And by giving patients the power to collect, own, and share their health data, we solve the biggest problem in clinical trials, finding the right patients while keeping and engaging them. At Seqster, we understand that health data is medicine, and my background in precision medicine of 20 years definitely helped us get to where we are, putting together a team of informatics folks, interoperability engineers, as well as physicians and innovators that understood that longitudinal health data is important, not to just patients, but to pharma enterprises, as well as just advancing medicine in general. And so we founded Seqster in 2016. And before that, I spent a decade and a half in the DNA sequencing space, disrupting and taking next-gen sequencing technologies to the clinic, building, very large genetic counseling divisions, as well as the first genomic services division that was servicing pharma for both exome sequencing and whole genome sequencing. And during that time, we are always looking, Brad, to augment the DNA data with all of the EMR data and all this other data, but the tailwinds weren't there. And so 2016 coming around, and after I had a very large exit, I decided to, take on this small little project called Seqster. And now, we are working, collaborating, and have partnered with some of the largest global pharma companies. So just really proud that we've been able to make an impact in such a short time.
Yeah. And no surprise, I work at a clinical trial site where we're constantly dealing with patient data and trying to track down patient medical records. And frankly, it's still a freaking mess trying to literally send faxes to, rural clinics or even big health systems, VA hospitals. It's a grind at the site level to track down all these documents. They may or may not exist. You may not be getting full medical records. You want to qualify these patients into trials. Is this something Seqster is addressing by sort of consolidating these records from disparate locations? And if so, is that a process that's managed by the patient or something that's managed kind of on the back end that, a clinical trial site could request through someone like Seqster? Kind of walk me through what that looks like practically.
Yeah. So, at Seqster, we're a leading healthcare technology company that's breaking down health data silos at scale. So our enterprise operating system is being used by top global pharma companies to accelerate real-world evidence and drug development. The Seqster operating system itself aggregates disparate health data sources into a single 360-degree view of a patient in real time. And that, Brad, solves a multitude of challenges for life sciences, patient engagement, and interoperability. We fell on this on complete accident, really, and our real-time access to over 300 million patient electronic health records nationwide in the United States, plus all their genomic DNA data and the wearable data, gives our pharma partners the edge to find and retain patients in any study. And that allows them to participate in future studies as well. And so I think a couple of things that you mentioned really hit on that. And the way that data collection and retainment was being done, and is still being done, is kind of archaic. We've created this operating system built by patients and pharma for pharma and patients. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, no, to your point, we're still working to a very large degree in a really unsophisticated way, when it comes to managing patient records, especially on clinical trials and at clinical trial sites. And to take that a step further, obviously that alone is a huge benefit to even a traditional trial site, but we all know the big buzzwords, decentralized clinical trials. Sort of how does that all fit in? It sounds like you also have an element of not just data management, but true patient engagement, which obviously enrollment and retention are the two big kind of hard points when it comes to clinical trial process. So how do you guys, help increase that patient engagement and maybe, by downstream also make sure that we retain those subjects as well?
Yeah, I think, lots of companies in the DCT, decentralized trial space, but no one has an operating system that can bring all the data together with the consent of the patient, as well as enabling the researchers on the other end, on the pharma end, to look at that de-identified data in real time. That is our biggest differentiator. There's only one Seqster, and the only reason is, I think, for what you just said just a couple of minutes ago, it's a grind. We've been grinding at this for 7 years. You can't just go raise $100, $200 million, throw at it, and think that you're going to solve it. It actually takes dirty engineering work, and our team gets all the credit for keeping the mission of putting the patient, Brad, at the center of healthcare in order to disrupt and break down all those data silos, whether that's your wearable data coming from your Apple Watch, mixed with your Garmin data, mixed with your Dexcom continuous glucose monitoring device, or whether that's your NYU Fox, Chase Cancer Center, Stanford data, MD Anderson data from multiple different Cerners, Epics, Allscripts. And what we've done is we built a very complicated tech stack that quickly can standardize and harmonize all of this data. And we've standardized and harmonized every single ICD-9 and ICD-10 code and all the SNOMED codes. So on the engineering side, there's just been a lot of work done. We've written, millions of lines of code in the last 7 years, and it's all been by trial and error, right? Every single patient has different data on them, and we've been dealing with, patient data since 2016, right? And so we were able to then pivot from our consumer interface to when we started working with pharma in late 2018. And then pharma started telling us what they wanted from a patient engagement standpoint.
Sure.
And when we got backed by Takeda Pharmaceuticals, everything changed. And, we have some marquee partnerships now in place with AbbVie as well as Boehringer Ingelheim just as recently as last month.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. I want to hear a little bit more about those partnerships, but I have a couple questions between there. So it looks like you're able to sort of utilize or reach into, both historical medical data as well as prospective. Like, or do you guys do ECOA or a direct data capture? Is that are those components of the operating system at this point?
Yeah, we have different modules for that, right? But the core technology is the fact that we can bring together real-time, real-world data. And what I mean by that is, where's your provider? You're out in Philly, right? So what's your provider out in Philly?
Yeah, so I'm in Oklahoma City, but I work with the hospital system, SSM.
Okay. So I thought for some reason you said that you were in Philly. I don't know why.
Yeah,
that must have been a different podcast. Sorry. What's it called? So look, in Oklahoma City, you have your healthcare system there. Let's say that you're in a clinical trial with one of our pharma partners and you are cycling down the street, and you fall off your bike and you scrape yourself and you got to go to the ER. As soon as you go to the ER, you're going to get some new labs done. They're going to do some kind of procedure or whatever. Right away, that data would be pulled through because you were within the instance of, let's say, the Pfizer digital front door that Seqster is powering, right? So we have pioneered the digital front door for pharma, for clinical trials, right? For decentralized trials. And so from a patient onboarding standpoint, to connecting both researchers and the data in real time, that is how we are connecting the dots of this industry's largest problem. Because you can't do ECOA, you can't do ePro and all these other modular things, as I call, if you don't actually have the right patients and the right data. You can't run analytics and insights. You can't do AI unless you have the right data. So how do you get the right data? How do you get it in real time so it's not static data like the old way of doing things, right? And how do you engage patients truly? We visualize all the data. We created the mint.com of healthcare. So the same way that you would aggregate your Wells Fargo, Bank of America student loans and see your net worth, I always ask the question, what about your net health, right? And how can you actually take a look at longitudinal data over years? And to answer your question, to comment on the retrospective data, we get data from the early 80s, right? If you look at Dr. Eric Topol's tweet, which got 3.7 million hits on our website, it broke our website in 2018 when we came out of stealth. He pulled data from 1985, 4 different health systems, all his DNA data, all his fitness data, his nutrition data, even from MyFitnessPal, all that through Seqster in about 24 hours. That was in 2018. We can now fast forward to 2020. Our algorithms have gotten so quick that it takes 60 seconds or less to do that. Super powerful.
Yeah, that's crazy. Crazy. No, I mean, I love that. And obviously, that has huge ramifications for all kinds of stuff, especially clinical trials. And so, I mean, yeah, tell me a little bit about some of these partnerships and sort of how those use cases are playing out and what effects we may or impact we may see.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, for a long time, I would say 2016, 2017 till 2018, half the year through 2018, I would say I was talking about, Seqster and bringing all your health data in one place, and people weren't really getting it. Like, people weren't really understanding, like, why do we need to do this, right? Even though the problem was right in front of our face, right? But now everyone wants to talk about what Seqster has solved. And the reason being is because you fast forward to 2022, we have, top tier CRO partnerships in place, like United Biosource, that's powering their decentralized trials with Seqster's operating system, right? We have National Pancreas Foundation that signed a deal with us as of this January, start of 2022, right when JP Morgan Healthcare Conference was still virtual, that we announced that deal. And that's us powering their digital front door for the United States' largest patient registry for pancreatitis and pancreatic cancer, right? And then we have, our partnership with Salesforce that came in March, April timeframe, right? Salesforce is using Seqster's operating system for patient registries and clinical studies. And then after that, AbbVie announced their big AbbVie Research Collaborative, which is their big convergence project of converging patient data. It's all powered by Seqster. We built their digital front door for both the patient onboarding, all the data collection, as well as, them being able to run any type of study, on the back end, and researchers on that side being able to look at the consented shared data from that standpoint. And then you just go to July 28th, our largest deal, a 3-year partnership with Boehringer Ingelheim to power patient centricity. And because, after all the diligence that these companies have been doing in our space, which there's only a small handful of companies, we're the only solution that, one, is patient-centric, 2, is FDA compliant. We're 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. We're HIPAA compliant. We're high trust certified, as well as we built, stringent encryption and security so that every single patient that gets onboarded gets their own encryption key. If you go to Kaiser with 11 million patient records, they have one encryption key for their whole entire population. But when, Novo Nordisk or AstraZeneca or Pfizer or AbbVie or Takeda or Boehringer Ingelheim launch their digital front door powered by Seqster's operating system to 100, 1,000, 1 million, 10 million lives, they get 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1 million encryption keys, right? And so we've taken every single angle of this from both the data privacy side, as well as the data collection side, as well as the patient engagement side, as well as, the business side. How does enterprise use this? How does pharma actually accelerate drug development? How does pharma decrease the cycle times and getting the right data, getting the right patient, and retaining that patient and the data for not current studies, but for future studies is such a huge challenge. We knock out, 20 birds with one stone.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's obviously a huge issue within the clinical trial space. No question about it. Probably the biggest problem is recruiting appropriate patients for these trials. So, and let me ask you this: is your platform, or forgive me if I'm using the wrong word. Say again.
Oh, it's not a platform. That's how we're completely different. We're an operating system, right?
Fair enough. Is this sort of like a white labeled? Does this get white labeled according to the particular client at this case?
Absolutely, yeah. So, if you're Pfizer, you're white labeling it. If you're AbbVie, you're white labeling it. If you're Takeda, you're white labeling it. And you're white labeling it based off of whatever use case you want. And that's the power of it. And it takes us from contracting to, signing the contract to deploying 5 business days. That's the power, actually. It's not just the power of data and the power of patient engagement, but it's the power of time, right? It's how fast we can get up a digital front door for pharma and its patients so that, they can control and they can dictate the next steps. And that white label, is definitely our innovation.
Yeah. And so I can imagine right off the bat, this could be, a big game changer in terms of, post-market registries, right? That's like screams, low hanging fruit right there to me. And I know that even, as a traditional site, like we don't generally even want to be doing post-market registries. It's a lot of work. It doesn't pay very much for us, but if it's all being captured, via automation, across this operating system, that seems like that alone is a pretty big advancement in terms of how patient registries could be done. Plus you're getting much more accurate real-time data, to your point, not just, what the patient happens to be, reporting to you, as a clinical research coordinator. So I could see that really changing the game in terms of what kind of data gets collected in these registries and post-market registries.
Yeah, for post-market surveillance, monitoring, it's big, and also for health economics outcomes research. And the reason being is, you listed all of them, I think. And it's not just limited to that. And that's what's great, right? So whether we're talking on the commercial side or the R&D side, or maybe it's just starting with an observational study, right? We dealt with, multiple different observational studies. It doesn't have to be specifically a phase 1 to phase 4 clinical trial. Of course, that's where, we make the biggest impact. But to get started, and if someone is looking for acceleration on patient centricity, if someone's really looking for not just innovation, right? We were innovators back in 2016 and 2017 and 2018. Once we started working with pharma and with the big consulting groups like McKinsey and Deloitte and Accenture, and they telling us what we should be building for the customer, that's when things started really accelerating for us. And I would have to say the pandemic as well, right? That's something that we missed in this conversation. The pandemic accelerated, I always say, digital health by 10 years. And, we were on the verge of really going bankrupt until the pandemic because no one believed that we could actually do what we can do, right?
Sure.
Until they tried it.
Sure. Yeah, no, and we've seen that across, the trial space too. So many changes, and sure, you're perfectly aware of the seemingly hundreds of DCT companies that have sort of popped up with, various levels of funding, and it's really chaotic, sort of at the clinical trial, especially at the site level where we're often interacting with a lot of these different and new technologies. And that's something I was curious too. Are there cases where even clinical trial sites are looped in to this operating system in a way that they can access data or engage directly with patients?
Yeah, and that's where the white label is so powerful, Brad. It's the fact that it can be customized for the sites even, right? It can be customized for the CROs. It doesn't have to be just for pharma, right? It can be customized for the patient registry itself, right? It can be customized for American Heart Association, the Alzheimer's Association of the United States, and help, both caregivers collecting data and the patients. And so there's a lot behind the scenes on Seqster's operating system. And it's all about seeking health data. That's what it's all about. That's why I believe everyone is a Seqster. It doesn't matter if you're a pharma company. It doesn't matter if you're a payer. It doesn't matter if you're a provider. It doesn't matter if you're a patient or a parent. We are all seeking health data, right? And it just relates to what use case, like you stated, and what segments within life sciences that want to take advantage and adopt our technology. We built this technology so that we break down data silos. We don't want to silo our technology. We are very grateful of our phenomenal marquee, top global pharma companies that have both backed us from the investment side as well as from the partnership side. And we're always looking to find, new partners that we can help solve multiple pain points for them, whether that's patient onboarding, the recruitment side, the retaining of the patient, getting patients in future studies, or finding the needle in the haystack on the data front.
Right.
And so this is where it's like, Seqster is just so powerful. You can see it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly seems like there's a extremely broad set of use cases here, and probably things that haven't been imagined yet at this point. Why the name Seqster? Where did that come from?
That's a funny one. So I rarely tell this story, but maybe some people have heard it. I was a big Napster user, and if you guys remember Napster in what was it, the late 90s or so, it was a way of you actually getting music. I thought that we should all own and control our data, obviously, right? The same way that you're owning and controlling your music today. Well, because of my DNA sequencing background, that's why it's SEQ. But the STIR is all the other data, right? The EMR data, the wearable data, the social determinants of health data. So we're mixing all this data and augmenting it with the sequencing data as well. That was the premise when I first founded the company in 2016 and named it Seqster because of Napster. So that's where the name comes. I actually came up with the name myself. I didn't have to pay some agency, $10 million for the name.
Nice. Yeah, no, I remember the Napster days. You never knew what you were going to get sometimes when you were downloading new music.
Yeah, Napster was great.
Well, Metallica did not like it.
Yeah, that's true. Metallica didn't like it. There was a lot of folks that didn't like it, right?
Well, look at it now, though. I mean, isn't the irony is like it's probably worse for them now than it was back in the Napster days.
100%. And then if you fast forward, if there was no Napster, there would be no iTunes, right? There would be no Spotify. There would be no, Apple Music. Those are all a digital front door for your music. Seqster is the digital front door for all your data, but from an enterprise standpoint, right? Even though we built the consumer end from the beginning. And that was, again, our biggest advantage, right? So our biggest advantage was the fact that we built the Napster first, and then it got transformed to being the Spotify that gets white labeled for whatever company within that segment, right?
Right.
Specifically pharma and life sciences.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think it's a good analogy. I like that very much.
Well, I give you credit because you brought up Metallica, and I'll never forget, what was it, Binge and Churn or something? Their big concert, 1991. I was a big Metallica fan, so you started making me think of the old music.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was ever since the Ride the Lightning days. Yeah, I was a fan back in the day. Not so much now, but I was the early stuff.
One, you remember the song One? That was one of the best.
Oh yeah, of course. It's on Master of Puppets. It's a great album.
Yeah, Master of Puppets is the best album by far.
Agree. Very cool. I want to switch gears a little bit. Something I like to ask kind of all my guests as they come on is, what are some maybe like tools or resources, something you use in your day-to-day life that, just kind of makes you, be the best, what makes you be the best Ardy you can be? What's something you'd share with the audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say there isn't one tool really, because every day is kind of like day one, as I always say, right? I've been doing this for 90,000 hours, if you think about it. And that's just Seqster, not before that. But if I didn't spend a decade and a half doing what I was doing before, there's no way that we'd be able to do Seqster and know, and get connected to the communities that we've been able to. So one thing that I really focus on to help just my day-to-day is I zen out. I dedicate time to zenning out. And how I zen out is usually by the beach. Obviously in San Diego, we have 75 miles of incredible coastline. So I'm very grateful for that. And, I'll do my walk and talks on the beach. And that helps me, to connect with nature. At the same time, it helps me think creatively for whatever we're doing the next day. So I always try to plan the next day, the day before. I never plan the next month or 2 months from now or 3 months from now. I mean, I can even tell you on your show here, we never had a business plan when I founded Seqster. We just had an idea and we had a mission. And I had conviction from the past that if you can bring all the health data in one place for a patient, good things would happen, right? And everything changed when we were able to run a tumor board in 6 hours, bring together Cologuard, Exact Sciences results, Foundation Medicine whole genome sequencing, non-invasive liquid biopsy from Guardant Health, and 6 different providers for a 69-year-old male that almost died from colorectal bleeding and colon cancer, dodged a bullet, got him in surgery in 6 days. And that happened to be my dad.
There you go. That's the real life shit right there.
So, that's when I realized health data is medicine. And that's when I came up with health data as medicine. And if all these things relate to another thing, and if I didn't spend time just zenning out, right, there's no way that we'd be able to go through the pains and struggles, both on developing, the platform to the operating system, right, and making that jump, as well as just, the grind, right? This is a grind. And the reason why there aren't many Seqsters is because there's not a team of folks that will stay on as long as our team to fight this fight. And we truly believe in the fact that if you put the patient at the center, good things will come. And we've seen it. And so we get motivated day by day by the hundreds and thousands of patients onboarding and seeing that, wow, we're really making an impact. And that in itself gives us more energy for the next day. I feel like, Brad, we've captured lightning in a bottle.
Sure. No, I love it. I think that's I love what you're doing. Where can people find you online, Ardy?
Look, I'm a very open CEO. And so you can reach me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. You can contact Seqster at info@seqster.com, SEQSTER.com. And I would be more than happy to talk to anyone about anything in regards to what we spoke about. Or if someone has an idea that we don't have, and there's millions of ideas, happy to hear from you. And if there's a family member, if there's a patient listening that wants help, we've helped, hundreds and thousands of patients by giving them, access for free on us so that they can, manage their chronic illness or disease by bringing all their data together. You can contact us. We're always here to help. We love what we do. And we thank you, Brad, for getting the message out and doing what you do.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on, Ardy. And we'll talk again soon. I'm sure we'll have some more to cover here in the future.
Absolutely. Till next time, it was great seeing you.
Thanks, man. As always, thank you so much for listening to Note to File Podcast. Make sure to check us out at notetofilepodcast.com. Check out all our past episodes, as well as show notes, episode transcripts, and guests' contact information. Thanks so much, guys.